Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dan Wynn with the Intentional Entrepreneur Podcast, and I have a very special guest with me today. He is the head of sales and marketing at Brevity, which is a company that specializes in knowledge management, documenting clients, policies, and procedures, as well as developing communication and digital marketing strategies. His entrepreneur spirit began straight out of college with a video game development firm with his closest and oldest friend. And then he moved on to music, which is his other passion, to Nashville and to work with some of the greatest producers, songwriters, and musicians as an audio engineer, which gave way to what he's working on right now at Brevity, doing training and promotional videos. And you can see he's drawing from a wide variety of expertise to help other business owners, entrepreneurs, and friends to create a formal structure in their business processes, their training, and their marketing. I want to welcome to the show, Brian Krause.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I remember the first time we met was in 2019 at the ClickFunnels Funnel Hacking Live conference. It was at the beautiful, what is it? Was it Opryland?
Yep, Gaylord Opryland Hotel and Resort.
It must have been, I want to say 3,000 people. And, we met, I believe over lunch over lunch over there. And, we've chatted, over the years. And when I started my podcast, your name, popped up in kind of my Rolodex, and I went back to look at, what you did, and what you do is so important for business owners and entrepreneurs. And it's probably something that most people don't appreciate to have right when they're starting up, right? Like I remember when I first started, it's just more about, all right, this is fine. Get the client, do the work, deliver it to the client, and then do the next thing, find another client, right? Or something to that. But what took me a long time to appreciate was to build out my systems and my SOPs and my internal trainings so that it could take me off of the busy work, the administrative work, the non-revenue producing work. And I can focus on all the things that make me most valuable in my company.
Yeah, absolutely. When you first start your business, you're not thinking about documenting what you're doing, and you're really just, like you said, you're wearing so many hats, and you're focused on just finding some clients to pay you so you can do the work. But pretty soon, all those hats you wear, if your business is growing, it becomes very rapidly, you're not able to do everything yourself. And before you can grow your team, before you can grow your business, before you can serve those clients that you're getting, you really need to be able to start documenting things. And when you're small, it's not easy to do because you're keeping so many plates spinning to begin with, that adding that additional plate becomes very difficult. But also things are changing so much, right? You might do it this way for this client and that way for that client. And then, but over time you start to fall into kind of a pattern. Mm-hmm. And that's when it's time to start writing these things down so that you can shift a lot of what you do off to team members and spend more of your time focusing on the business and on the things that you love doing in the business.
Right. And I think it's important, to do what you love, right? Because especially for people who went from maybe doing a corporate job to opening their own business, right? And for a lot of them, for a number of reasons, right? They always want to go at their own. They want to control who they work with. But I have a little bit more freedom, but oftentimes the freedom is kind of a misnomer because we end up working more hours and sometimes with less pay for the same, or for more work. And so I wanted to have you on the show to discuss how you've been helping your clients, scale their business, work on the stuff that they only love, and really think about that particular process in maybe knocking over that first domino that they need to, all right, stop from having a job to having a business?
Sure thing. So, as you're building the business, like I said, things can be very fluid at first, but there comes a time when you need to start writing down how you do what you do. Really, the only difference between one business and another is that knowledge that's within the company, and all the things you've tried that didn't work, and all the things that you still have yet to try. How you what did work, and why you do the things you do. That stacks up, and for a while that knowledge is all tribal. It's in your head, it's in your partner's head, it's in your employees' heads, and everybody kind of works in their own little silo. But what can happen very, very often is you get to a point where you look up and you've got a few key employees that everybody is turning to see how this is done or that is done, right? We around here we use the example of Brenda, right? Imagine Brenda is the person in your office who everybody goes to when they have a question, right? Brenda, how do we do this, or how do I do that, or whatever. Well, it's not long before you realize that you've got a serious problem on your hands, because if Brenda goes on vacation, right, productivity stops. And then when Brenda gets back, she gets swamped. And Brenda spends so much of her time not being able, having to help everybody else, that she's under a tremendous amount of pressure just to get her own job done. And then you're also in the position where you can't really afford to promote her to a leadership position, say, because she's the only one who knows how to do any of this stuff. So if Brenda leaves, you're in a real bind, right? And not to mention, Brenda's not happy where she is, and she could be doing more in a higher position. So you have to transfer that knowledge out of Brenda's head. You have to document it, and then you may end up needing to create training, so that when somebody new comes on, everything that Brenda's figured out over the last 15 years, they can go through. So it becomes really critical once you get to a certain size, and once you start bringing on more clients than you can handle yourself, it becomes really critical to write this stuff down, and write it down in a way that other people can pick it up, and the team can really work as a team, and people can work in their strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, I don't know if you're a business book reader, but shoot, I forgot the name, but Good to Great is the name of the book. And the author says, it's not just merely putting people on the bus, but putting them in the right seats on the bus for your business to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And once you get them, they're going to wing it if they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And it's really hard to even identify the people you need if you haven't identified their roles and all that sort of thing. And we help clients with that. And the case I'm giving is for a smaller client, but we also help larger clients who they've known for years that they need to do it, but everybody is just keeping their head above water day to day, that the project has sat there and continually gets pushed back, and it just hasn't gotten done. Right. This is something that I think everybody knows is important, but it's not urgent. Right. Yeah. So if you're looking at that whole quadrant of important and urgent and all that, it's important, but not urgent until Brenda gives her 2 weeks notice. Right. But then it's almost too late. Right. So, yeah, it's not flashy what we do, but it is so incredibly necessary. And I, that's my job, is to help as many people get that done as possible.
Yeah. So for people who are looking to get to the next level and multiply their revenue, grow their team, how does, you helping the clients and structuring their business, how do you help them, effectively scale their business?
So our like I've said, our specific piece is building that structure, getting that knowledge out of people's heads, getting into policies and procedures that people can access. And as you go through the process of documenting, it's inevitable that you're also going to review, is this the best way to do it? Or you're going to find out that Ken's been doing it differently than Brenda. And so what is the best way? What way do we want to do it moving forward? And you end up, just as a side note, in standardizing that, you're also, for the customer facing things that you do, you're going to end up creating a more consistent experience for your clients and your customers as well. But to answer the question, how do you go about, getting it so that you can grow your business? It starts with doing the drudgery of figuring out everything you do, writing it down, documenting it, and then having it there, accessible for the people who need it. Now that's fairly broad. But if I were to get more specific, talking to the entrepreneur who's out there who is at that stage where they're just getting too big to do it themselves, forgetting our larger clients, but just focusing on the entrepreneurs out there. The first thing I would say that you need to do is you need to identify and list everything you're doing right now in your business. You're wearing a ton of hats. You need to actually write down, just list everything you're doing, right, for all your clients. And then you need to decide what functions you do and you don't want to be doing. So once you've created that list, then narrow it down. Okay, well, these things I actually like. These are my strengths. These are the things I enjoy. I would love it if I didn't have to do this ever again, right? It might be the bookkeeping. It might be SEO. It might be copywriting, whatever it is, the functions in your business that you're doing right now. And I'll give that example, right? I am good at copywriting, at writing sales copy, but I do not like it at all. So you define, document the things that you don't want to do, and then document how you're doing those things, right? Mm-hmm. What your guidelines are, how you're actually doing it, make your step-by-steps, and then determine, okay, so I've defined that I don't like writing copy. I need to find a copywriter. Mm-hmm. You can use any of the many resources out there to find them. You can just network or, post on LinkedIn. LinkedIn allows you to create one job post for free before they require you to start paying. So, find those people. And I'll also say, you don't have to hire employees right away. In the example of a copywriter, there are plenty of freelancers out there, right? So you can start small and just get people on your bench. Even if you don't have something for them to do today, get them on your bench, interview them, find the persons, and just say, I want you on my team for when the next project comes down. So I think that can also be a large mental block for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, well, I don't have the revenue in this category to hire this person. Well, if you're hiring freelancers, if you're identifying the people and just being upfront with them, just saying, I need you on my bench because I have something that might be coming down the pike in 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. If you've identified those people and you've identified how you want them to do the job you want them to do, then when that stuff hits, then your job just becomes handing it out, right? And that can reduce a lot of the stress. And once you find the rhythm, the job ends up being done better anyway, because you've identified somebody who loves copywriting in this example, right? Right.
You mentioned mental blocks. And I remember when I was going through this myself, was for me to document it, create the SOP, it's going to take me 10 minutes, 20 minutes. The task itself is going to take me 2 minutes to do. So I'd rather, this is the old me, I'd rather just take the 2 minutes and do it. How do you coach your clients, train your clients to kind of get over that particular mental hurdle? of it's
Mhm.
faster for that particular time, right?
Yeah. So, well, in our case, we're providing a done for you service
Right.
for our clients. So they're hiring us because they've been trying to do it, and they're at the point where it's like, we just need to bring somebody in and do
Mhm.
it who is an expert at it. But what I would say to the entrepreneur and the small business owner out there who's thinking about like trying to take some of this on themselves, I would say, um, you have to understand that, yes, it's going to take more time. It may take an hour or two to document this 10-minute thing, but once you've documented it, if you can then hand that off to somebody, that's something you don't ever have to do again. You might have, I mean, let's be honest, you're going to have to train somebody on it, and you're going to have to kind of, gradually take the training wheels off for them. But once you can hand that off to somebody else, it's just like anything else in life. It's an investment. It's an
Right.
investment of your time. It's an investment of your energy. But it enables you to do the things that that pay more. It enables you to do the things that that are your actual strengths. You could be, if your team is able to deliver the executable, for example, and I'm just using that if you're more of a leadership minded person. If you're the person who started the plumbing company because you really like turning the wrenches, then you can hire an office manager. You
Mhm.
can hire a sales guy. You don't have to do that stuff. So, um, so that's what I would say, is that you just have to remember that it's an investment, and I fall into that
Right.
still.
Right.
I'm just going to bang this out because it's going to take me a half hour.
Right.
And sometimes, the client needs it today,
Mhm.
and I can't train somebody to, right now. But make a note to then go back and document it after it's been delivered, so that next time you've got somebody at least half trained to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, um, I do work in the franchise field, and what you're talking about is actually really important because what the franchisors have to provide the franchisees is what's called an operations manual, and it's really all their standard operating procedures written down. Now it's digital, right? Before it was kind of in a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk to new potential franchisors, I ask them, "Hey, do you have any of this stuff written down?" A lot of the times they say, "Oh, it's in my head," and so
Mm-hmm.
they have to work with someone to do exactly what you do: is extract the information and put it down
Mm-hmm.
in a into some particular tangible format, so that they're not having to explain themselves over the phone 5, 10, 20 million times to their particular franchisee.
Yeah, and especially if you're franchising or doing something like that, you absolutely have to have it documented and figured out. Otherwise, like we said before, the customer is not going to get the same. If it's a restaurant, they're not going to get the same burger at one of your locations as the other. I mean, that's not going to go well for
Yeah.
you, and that can really hurt your franchisees.
Yeah.
If you have an eye on selling the business at some point, you need to have that documented. It's it, it's once you get past that, once your plane is off the runway and flying, it's no longer a nice to have, and it's a need to have at that point.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we're talking today. It's June 2nd, 2020. We're hopefully at the tail end of coronavirus, and I know a lot of businesses over the past year, 18 months, have had to pivot, be more flexible. Can you share a little bit about what you guys do for your clients, and how's it allowed them to make those particular decisions to kind of hammer it through, or be flexible in the changing economy?
Sure. The key is to have a baseline. So if once you've documented everything, you're going to be more resilient, because the knowledge that's inside of your business is going to be documented. So if Brenda leaves, you're not in a lurch, or if Stacy gets sick, again, that knowledge is not lost with her, or for the time that she's gone. This this whole COVID thing has forced a lot of companies to have to reassess what they're doing and how they're operating. It is always easier to sit down and amend a procedure or a policy than it is to come up with them out of whole cloth, or to realize that you have no idea how you've been handling things. And there's liability issues there too. If you're not, if especially if you're like in a restaurant situation, and this was more, it's 2021 now, things are relaxing and opening up a little bit, but when things were really hard on lockdown, if you had employees who you have a policy but it's not communicated, that's another thing. So to answer your question about being resilient and what have you, you start with having it documented, but then you have to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So what we do for our clients is once we're done documenting, or really during the process of documenting, it's not at all uncommon that we'll obviously identify the need to develop training around that. My first experience with Brevity, I came in as a video producer. Now I head up sales and marketing, but I still lead the video production team. Training it used to be a written thing. Now it's very much both. You need to have written and video because people digest that content in different ways. So once you've got your policies and procedures, you need to be able to train people on it, or at the very least communicate it to them. And that if you're in a small shop, that may be as simple as having an all hands meeting, and then just telling them what's going on. But if you're in a larger company, that's going to require some real thought. You can't just send out an email to 400 people and just assume that everybody's going to see it, that they're going to read it, and then they're going to digest it and take action on it. And so when it gets that big, then we often help our clients with the actual communication. And we do it a la carte. We have some clients who they've got everything written down. They just need training, developed. We've got clients who, they just need our help with the communications piece. But they all tie together. It's kind of a chain,
Right. So, if you can share some of the tools that you use or you recommend your clients to use to share some of the trainings, whether it's video or written, so that's maybe there's a company database or something, right? That
sure. What we use, honestly, it depends on the client. Most clients have, once they get to a certain size, they have a way they like doing things. So if they're invested in Office and they're using SharePoint and Microsoft Teams for everything, then we're going to house it in SharePoint. If they have if they have a payroll company with a learning management system and we're doing the training for that, then we're going to house it in there as long as it meets their needs. But for the smaller, for the entrepreneurs and the small business owners out there, I will tell you a couple of cool tools that you can use if you're just wanting to start this process yourself and you're not quite ready to actually hire a company to do it for you. If you're just wanting to show somebody something really quick, this is how I do this in Outlook, or this is how we do something on ClickFunnels or what have you. There are a couple of great tools that I would recommend for screen recording. You can use Loom. That's at www.loom.com. I love doing that when I just need to show somebody really quick. It's a screen recorder. It's free. You just hit the record button. It'll record your microphone and your screen. And then when it's done, it'll just, it hosts it right there on Loom, and you get a link. You can just email somebody a link. That's also great for customer service experiences too. If you have a client who's like, I can't get this thing to work that you did for me, or I can't remember how you explained to do this, you can just show them. If you're a little more tech savvy and you want to have more control over the video, OBS, and that's at obsproject.com. That is a full service screen recording software. It records locally, allows you to do some more editing. It gives you the file there. You can record at higher resolutions. Loom is free. as long as your recordings are under 5 minutes. OBS doesn't have that limitation, and it is also free, right? There are some higher end ones. Naturally, you've got, the Adobe Suite and Camtasia and all those, but OBS and Loom are both free, which is why I recommend them. And then if you're wanting to take that video you've made and turn that into something written, there's a great transcription platform that I would recommend for people out there, and it's called otter.ai, and it's just www.otter.ai. It's like $10 a month, and what it does is it transcribes. So you can upload a video or upload an audio file, and it'll just transcribe that for you. And it's an AI transcription, so it's not always right. You're going to have to go in and edit it some. But for $10 a month, you get 6,000 minutes of transcription, and those are some great, low or no cost tools that I would use if you're just wanting to do it yourself for now. If you're too small to hire a company to do it, those are some great freebie tools that I recommend for you.
Yeah. I use Loom myself. Fantastic tool. That was one of the things I also recommend to my other, friends and colleagues as well. Okay. So, hey, we're here with Brian Krause with Brevity Inspired, and we're getting to the end here. So we're going to go into a rapid fire section. All right. So all you do is just answer the first thing that pops into your head. All right. Okay. All right. So who do you look up to?
My wife and partner, Libby. She has been the driving force behind the business since she founded it in 2009. And she has an amazing mind, an amazing work ethic, the ability to, she can really look at a project and she can see the forest and the trees at the same time. It's really something I've always really admired about her and wished I could do. And I really can't tell you how lucky I am to get to work with her.
That is a skill that not many people on this earth have.
No, it is. And I wish I had it too. But I don't, but she does.
All right. Next question is the best business advice you've ever gotten.
There's a book out there called Who Not How. And, I think it was Steve Larson mentioned it, but he said, you can't wear every hat in the business forever. And so you need to be focusing less on how you are going to get something done and more on who is going to do it for you. And along that, I saw, it was a meme of all things on Facebook, but it was true. It said, what was it? Skilled labor isn't cheap and cheap labor isn't skilled. So, and it was just a sign somewhere that somebody had taken a picture of, but that's the other piece of advice I got, from that meme and from my own personal experience is just don't be, and from, other business mentors as well. Don't be afraid to pay more for people who are excellent at what they do. It will save you so much time and headaches than trying so much more than trying to get just the cheapest person you can get it to fill a seat and who says they can do something for you.
Yeah. Who Not the How? I recently got that book. I'm kind of halfway through it. So it's still excellent. I remember hearing that first particular phrase through one of the One Funnel Away challenges. It was one of the modules, and I'm one of those guys that I have to hear something like 2 or 3 times before it hits, right? And so that was the nth time I've heard it, and it just clicked. I was like, oh, okay, now this makes sense.
Yeah,
and
I think we all are that type of person.
Yeah, so that's when I started, bringing other people in to help me with some of the stuff that I'm certainly not great at, and someone else can do much faster and much better than I am. And to your point about the meme sign and skilled labor is not cheap and cheap labor is not skilled, I believe. There's another sign that said, fast, cheap, and what is it? Good, but pick two.
Yeah, you only get to pick 2. It's a triangle.
Right. So, all right. So the next question is, best business book you've ever read.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. The classic from Dale Carnegie. It's just your ability to work with people is the key, I think, to winning in life, in your personal relationships, in your business relationships. Your skill is only going to carry you so far. At some point, you're going to rely on other people to get things done, and your ability to relate with them and connect with them, and for them to just to understand that you value them and to be able to communicate that to them is one of the most important things that you can learn. And that book really lays it out in such a great way. I read it, when I was in college, and then I read it again a few years later, and it's been a while. I'm due to read it again, but I have a personal rule that I need to read that book again every few years, so I don't forget all the lessons in it.
Right. I think it's probably a timeless classic for not just any business owner or entrepreneur, probably just anyone who wants to be successful in life. Right. It's got so many life skills in that book that anyone can take into any particular trade or job, or of course, business that they're in. So if you're listening and haven't read the book, buy the book, pick a book at your local library. It's a fantastic book. And okay, next question is, if you had to do one thing over again, what would it be?
I would have niched down sooner. Instead of trying to do anything for anyone, I would have focused a lot more on the things that I do best, and said, this is what I do, right? And yes, I can do this, I can do that, but this is what I do. I would have gotten to that sooner if I could have.
Yeah. So, along those lines, how did you mentally get over where, well, if I'm niching down, I'm turning away clients in this particular area, and I need to keep the lights on. And so how do I say no, right, to that particular client?
Yeah, that is a tough one, because when you're in the space where you need to keep the lights on, right? You need to make your bills this month. You are kind of in you're in a pickle. If they ask you, can you do this? I mean, I'll be honest, my answer is usually yes, if I'm in that situation. But as far as, start with your messaging, right? I do this, and make it really easy for somebody to understand, because once you become known as that person who does that thing, that exact thing, people identify you as the expert in it. You end up getting more business doing that exact thing. People, if I have a Toyota and it's having a serious problem, or I have just like a car that I really, really love, I'm gonna trust a mechanic who only does Toyotas way more than I'm gonna trust a mechanic who does, anything with an internal combustion engine. And it's the same thing in other walks. If I have a specific disease, I want a doctor who just does that disease, right? As opposed to somebody who just kind of does everything and doesn't, and only knows what he's read in the recent journals, and doesn't have, so, and that's in business too, right?
All right. And last question, what's the biggest challenge in your business right now?
In our business right now, we're growing really quickly this year. So we're just in a growth phase. So identifying, interviewing, and onboarding and training new people is what's currently taking a lot of our focus. So, yeah.
Okay. Congratulations on your year of growth.
Thank you.
Yes. So, hey, Brian, if our listeners want to reach out to you and learn more about what you guys do, what's the best way to go about doing that?
You can just go to www.brevityinspired.com.
All right. Again.
And that's our website.
All right. Yeah. So again, Brian Krause here with Brevity Inspired. Thank you so much for being on the show. Certainly something every business owner, entrepreneur needs to know about: scaling your business, creating systems, and hopefully we'll talk soon. And you can let me know how many more team members you have.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much,
All
Dan.
right. Have a great day.
All right. All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.